I think that the whole world woke up on 4th of March, realizing the next level of madness of Russians when they attacked Zaporozhye nuclear power station, one of the largest power stations in Europe. So it was just miracle they didn't damage six nuclear power units, this station, because it was just several meters this administrative building they attacked. So now they cross another red line, and nobody can expect what will be the next. So what was important for us is to react on this immediately, so that load was switched from nuclear power station to thermal power station, and we kept stability of the system. But it was another argument for Ukrainians and for our government and for us to request no-fly zone above nuclear power stations. And I think that the whole world realized the seriousness of this request, because it will be disaster not only for Ukraine but for the whole continent if they attack another nuclear power station. And I just want to remind that we have 6 nuclear power stations in Ukraine. So for us, what is important is that have enough capacity to keep the energy system stable. What was good is that half of nuclear power stations were already switched to fuels supplied from Westinghouse, and we should think about future. So it was official announcement that now we refuse to take any fuel for nuclear power station from Russia, and we need to have very clear actions how to replace it.
I want to start by saying that there have been some perverse outcomes for Vladimir Putin to this war against Ukraine. And the biggest perverse outcome of all, I think, is it will be in the end a true strategic defeat for Putin. And we've seen the elements of that in this series of what I am calling perverse outcomes. One is that NATO is more unified than ever. NATO is more popular, and there's more support for NATO across Europe than ever. Defense spending is up across Europe. There's been a transformational change in defense policy in countries like Germany and other places across Europe. And fundamentally, there's been a transformational change in Europe's approach to diversifying away from Russian energy. I've been working on European energy security for decades, and never have I seen such a commitment, and this time it feels real, to diversifying away from Russian oil and gas.
On Ukraine, it's like President Biden has stated many times in his leadership of unifying the world in support of the Ukrainian people. It breaks your heart. Anyone who watched President Zelensky's speech and the video that was part of that speech knows that there is such great human suffering that's going on, and how one person, one dictator can do what is being done there is something which is reprehensible. And so the unity of the world, the Western world, is really important, and I think what it has done in many ways unified the world and most of the world against Russia. And we've been pleased that Mexico has been supportive of the UN decisions and other decisions that have been made. For me, I think long range, what it underscores is the importance of this alignment between Mexico and the United States. So much of the world's economic security and national security is based on the relationship between these two nations. And so as we've gone through this chapter of the Russian invasion, for me, what it has underscored is the relationship that the US and Mexico have had for a long time, including the very exemplary relationship that they had during World War II.
There are different tracks where we have to tackle migration problems. And first of all, Mexico has been very, very active, very helpful in order to help to control the flow of migrants from the south. What we have seen is that we have a regional problem, which is not just a national problem. Before, migration was just an issue of Mexico and the USA. Then it became an issue of several of the northern central nations from Central America and Mexico, and now we have flows from different parts of the world which are increasing. So the challenge has been raising, and but also the collaboration and also the dialogue and the measures to really tackle this issue. So these tracks that we're working at are first, of course, what is the flow of migrants? Second, as Ken just said, it's to address the roots of migration, a development approach to migration. And third, which is very important and we keep pushing on it, which is to widen the legal path to migration. Because if you have a flow that is constantly pushing and you have a legal path, then you have another means to really help this flow to decrease.
But we've seen across the world that when we engage with each other, the toughest challenges that cross borders, from immigration and gender equity, of course, climate change and this pandemic, we have a better shot of addressing those if we just don't wait only for national governments to solve it. I'll give you a case in point. As chair of C40, which is the 97 kind of biggest cities of the world, I hit the bat signal at the beginning of the pandemic. And when Zoom was still something new, this is probably our 10,000th Zoom, right? But when it was like my first or second, we had almost 45 mayors from around the world, from Seoul, from Milan, from London, from Mexico City, from all these cities together across our time zones, get together and talk about this pandemic. The mayor of Seoul talked about what it was like to have drive-through testing. Nobody knew what that meant. The mayor of Milan, when that was the hot spot, told us how to get ready for your hospitals to be able to subdivide their space to deal with the suffering that would come and to prevent as many deaths as possible. And the next day we were implementing those things. I talked with my successor at C40, recently took over, Sadiq Khan, and he was briefing his Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and telling them all the things that were going on in different cities. And Boris Johnson turned to his aides and said, "Do we know this stuff?" And they said, "Yeah, but we've been writing a report, we're gonna get it to you." And I think it was that moment of realizing that when we wait for national leaders, the whole bureaucracy has to get it up to them. You have to schedule weeks of them talking to each other, negotiations of months of forward action. Mayors the next day are moving on things. And so to me, this is why it's so important for us to invest as a nation in this area. And whether it's that or our gender equity network that we co-founded or our Mayor's Migration Council, these are the places where we can be the laboratories and the frictionless implementers of the change we need.